Okay, we're going to get started with a few of our talks over the afternoon. So these are going to be very informal chats. You can keep playing with the technology, and we're just going to talk a bit about some of this metaversey world and hopefully answer some of your questions. So if you're waiting for your turn, or if you'd like to learn more about the metaverse or hear about projects, then we'll get into some of these conversations as we get started. So one of the things that's nice about today is that we can also look back and see how the technology's evolved. And it began, I mean, certainly for me, with Google Cardboard and finding this amazing little product. And we have someone that's been working on a project that built this technology or an experience around this technology that allowed people to then try out the experience. So do you want to introduce yourself and say who you are at the person?
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Manuel Hernandez. I'm program leader for digital media and extended reality, which is one of our programs here at the University of Salford. And this is one of my research projects I published in March 2021. It was this little application. It's called Live I'm a Drive C4, and it's basically just a virtual reality game in which you adopt the role of a farmer and you are responsible of different actions, that have consequences on the climate change.
Okay.
So it's basically that is linked to a very ambitious project, which is obviously with this name, the AHRC C4. And this project is conducted still for 2 years more in Spain, in the southeast. And it's basically monitoring the southeast of Spain in relation to how agricultural practices can influence on the certification of climate change.
Which is a very topical subject this fortnight with COP27 taking place.
Yeah, well, first it's unfortunately climate change and sequestration of carbon and all things related to, the certification as well. Yeah, it's unfortunately an important topic, even more in the southeast of Spain, all Mediterranean areas like this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a great way to raise awareness through something that's also very accessible. Because just for people that don't know much about Google Cardboard, explain a little bit about how it works and why it's such an appealing product to use.
Well, when thinking about the project, it was key to think about accessibility and thinking how make this project to be, as democratic as possible, as useful as possible. How can we make, schools or high schools or even universities to use this project? And the way it was pointed out is why not making it, through Google Cardboard. And obviously Google Cardboard is a technology that is in the market for many years. But still, and the reason obviously is that sometimes it's not as easy to program to design for Google Cardboard. There are some limitations in relation to the quality of the graphics, related to, to the different versions, the deployment. So, obviously it was a challenge, but I think it was worthy, and that makes the project much more accessible for everybody.
And certainly one of the big themes in the metaverse and often with technology generally is like, is this going to be accessible to everybody? And we haven't quite bottomed out what the metaverse is yet. We're still trying to figure out what that is. But to the extent that this is the virtual world of reality that you can walk into and be part of, but you still need to have the technology to access it, which is really difficult.
Exactly. Having a mobile is the only thing you need.
Yeah.
Using Google Cardboard, and that's the power of that. And obviously the disadvantages, let's say, quality or, of the graphics or dimension. It's difficult to compete with video games, with AA video games, and with everybody selling the metaverse as, the great images of the metaverse, high quality Unreal 5 power engines or things like that. And that's great. That's amazing. But metaverse can be anything because it's more a kind of a philosophical approach to life, living in the virtual world. And that's something that has been going on for 30 years. So it's not, although it's now a trend, it still is something that has been, going on for many, many years. It's part of our culture. That games are, for example.
Absolutely, and games are such a central part of everyone's culture as well. And it's amazing to me to see how many new things keep coming on the scene. Like I saw on my mobile app for Netflix, you've now got gaming experiences within it. It's the Amazon Fire Stick. So people are sort of finding a way into the metaverse through gaming, which is a big part of that economy that's coming forward.
Sure. Many people do, and I think games are doing such a big campaign for the metaverse in terms of selling that funny funny, fantastical, approach to Metaverse.
Yeah.
But it's only one of the many sides of the Metaverse. Games are saying sometimes little about many other things like the business that are around or like all that could change, the way we relate with economy, with society, with, with environment. And that's the fascinating thing about metaverse. How many sides, how many, conversations to have. That's why I think it is, even it's quite interesting because all these conversations are happening, in this game.
Absolutely, and we're really proud to be presenting this event as part of the Arts and Humanities Research Prize for D&D and Festivals. And that title to me is fascinating. Being human. Can you stay human in the metaverse, or does it require us to become post-human or something very different? Or are we overthinking this?
No, I think all technologies that are really important and that can be core technologies have an element disruptive associated to them.
Yeah.
And through the history of humanity, you have been facing different milestones, different elements that have changed our way of relating with environment, and the metaverse is going to be one of those.
Really?
So I think it's important, it's really relevant. But yeah, the term about posthumanism or transhumanism is something that, yeah, I really think, we don't have perspective on that. I remember when someone say, "Oh, we are going to be cyborgs," because Google Glass was released that year, and it's like, no, we are already cyborgs. We are already cyborgs. In the moment that we started to use glasses, and the moment that we started to use sticks, we have employed technology to be part of what we are as humans, and that has been, coming out much more early than we thought. So that's obviously that's again this is kind of philosophy, I guess.
Well, you mentioned
So it's just
philosophy, because philosophy is a big part of arts and humanities, and actually, what's really exciting being in Greater Manchester is we have a really critical mass of researchers that are thinking through some of those philosophical implications to technology. We have a number of people working in artificial intelligence, wondering what the ethical foundation of that should be. And metaverse, of course, is creating anxieties for lots of people because, well, we know who's really precipitating this conversation, which is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook pivoting into Meta, which creates this tidal wave of then reactions in the industry. But it's got to be so much more than Meta, hasn't it?
No, it has, but it's a symptom of one of the sides we call about the metaverse being the economy. And again, it would be also a philosophical question to consider that transformations of society can be, described in an economical way. This, probably just a Marxist way of seeing reality, but very legitimate one, very legitimate. So, yeah, why not?
Well,
I think it's important as well that Meta is investing money on that. I think anyway it's going to be a battle. That's my personal opinion.
well, that's an opinion I think is widely shared because, of course, in order for these things to develop, you have to have the creators, the technologists employed enough to be able to make it happen.
Sure.
And at the moment, this space is really exciting because so many creators are around it trying to think through what it might be. But I think your project is fascinating because it raises awareness. And I remember various companies have created kind of VR for good programs where they're trying to, and there's some amazing app experiences within off-the-shelf apps like the Oculus Quest where you can watch actually a wonderful documentary that was located, I think it was National Geographic, and it takes you up Everest. And you see the perspective in virtual reality, but what you also see is the waste that's been left by all the climbers. And the project was very much about showing people that this beautiful area has been sort of basically completely trashed by humans.
No, it's interesting that you mentioned the Everest project because it has a similarity in one of the sense that when it was conceived as a tool for disseminating our project, it was thought about that experience of contemplating the landscape and thinking the difference between a landscape like a farm and a landscape like a mountain is that it will be maybe thousands of years before you see actually any relevant change in the mountain.
Yeah.
But in the farm, you are actually seeing the change of the environment as a consequence of the human year by year. And that was the inception, that was the theme of the project, that was what inspires the game. I think the landscape, only one landscape, is going to offer so many stories, so many transformations as a consequence of the game actions. So that was the point. So it's the relationship between the human and the landscape, and that immersive relationship,
Yes.
what is reflected, and it's common to any technology, within all these metaverse.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting sort of transformation to what we're doing around the subject matter. So the fact that it's playable, the fact that immersive means you're an active participant in orchestrating the consequences of these actions. And I was reminded as you were speaking of the launch of Microsoft's Minecraft planet, Frozen Planet world that was a few weeks ago, where we see now young people learning about climate change by playing Minecraft in partnership with BBC Production, which of course is a fantastic way to reach that younger generation.
Sure. This game it's part of that long tradition of serious games focused on environment. I'm thinking about rhetorical, if you want, this kind of procedural rhetoric,
Yes.
trying to persuade the people to what is good or bad about this topic, from game. So that's basically that.
And
It's the
it's,
same tradition.
and it's so crucial to have accessible, affordable technologies like Alcon, because many people can't experience these things through the equipment as cost out of money. I mean, schools trying to do educational programs using extended reality is really difficult unless you have that infrastructure.
It is. I understand that there are different dynamics in the implementation of technology. Everybody now is investing in Oculus and headsets
Yeah.
that are high specifications, and there are reasons for that. These cheaper systems still have a goal because, as I say, are accessible, and I think that's so important that we shouldn't think. We cannot think that only the only people that can enjoy Metaverse or can be benefiting from Metaverse should be the people who can afford a 300 pounds device.
Yeah.
It should be, we are talking about different countries, different economies, different, situations. So it is important that we have always in mind how to adapt the products to formats that are still accessible.
And it reminds me of a quote from William Gibson, famous science fiction writer: "The future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed."
Oh, yeah.
I think that it felt sadly it's been that way for many years now, but it sort of reminds us of why these things are so important.
Yeah, I would say not only distributed inequally, it's also that the motivation of the people is also unequal. Different levels of interest and different levels of motivation and engagement with these technologies.
Yeah.
There will be people always that are on top, on the edge, and trying to experience everything, or trying to, like reset it, I guess.
Yeah.
But how we can use these waves in society to use this popularity of a particular trend or particular technology to benefit other social problems, they do, find these solutions to other social problems through these trends, and I think that's also something, a dynamic that we as researchers we have to to use to some extent.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end. But thank you very much for joining us.